Hello everyone, once again. Welcome to today's iDoceo tutorial. Today's tutorial is definitely a tutorial, but it's also a little bit more of a public service announcement. And that public service announcement is meant to address people who are naturally a little apprehensive, let's say, about using an all-digital report system like iDoceo. Two of the main concerns that I often hear from fellow teachers about using a system like iDoceo is security of student information and safety, for lack of a better word. Let's call it safety of that information. People who are used to using a binder to collect all of their data on marks and on student behavior are worried about this little tiny tablet that I'm using to collect all of my marks. They're worried that it's easy to lose, easy to be stolen. You could snap it in half. It would be very upsetting if an entire year worth of student data collecting completely goes up in smoke a week before final report cards are due. This scenario absolutely terrifies me as well. And having my iPad stolen or lost, falling into the wrong hands, that's a lot of confidential information that I certainly wouldn't want a stranger or a student to see. But I'm here today to tell you that using iDoceo, using your iPad to collect this sort of student information is infinitely more secure and more safe than using a teacher binder. To address the concerns about security, first of all, using an iPad to collect digitally information on your students is incredibly secure. To use iDoceo, there are actually two levels of security that you can use. First of all is your iPad's internal security system. If you go into the settings menu and go under the general settings here, you'll see over here, if you scroll down a little bit, there is a section on passcode lock. Okay, you need to go ahead and click on that and set your passcode lock on immediately, which means that your iPad will immediately ask for a passcode whenever it's put to sleep. So this is the passcode lock options. You have to actually enter your passcode to access the screen, where you can change your passcode or change the simple passcode, which is just a 4-digit number, into the more secure and more difficult to hack complex passcode. But I just use a simple one, and I require it to be used immediately. So that's one level of security that my iPad has. And if you think immediately requiring the password is perhaps a little bit too much, you can actually change it to a minute or 5 minutes or after 15 minutes. But just like they tell you here, shorter times are more secure. Now, when you use iDoceo, there is actually a second level of security that's available. In order for someone to access your iDoceo records, they first have to get through your iPad's security lock, and then to open iDoceo, there is an additional password lock in the iDoceo app itself. And you access that by clicking on the settings menu over on the side here. Opens up this window. Scroll down to password lock. Okay. It's actually off by default, so you're going to want to click that to turn it on. Then it'll ask you to type your new PIN. It's just a 4-digit code. Type it in, click OK. Then it asks you to confirm your new PIN, just in case you made a typo, and then click OK. And then it asks you how long you want it to wait before it requires the password lock. If you're using it in the classroom, sometimes it might be a good idea to put a bit of a delay on it because you're walking around, you're talking to students, you're collecting data. Maybe you might want to wait at least 5 minutes or so before it requires a password lock again. But basically what will happen is after 5 minutes, when your iPad goes to sleep, not only will you have to unlock the iPad itself, but to access iDoceo files, you'll have to go through the unlock process again. And that might be a little bit annoying for some people to punch in 2 different passcodes to access your iDoceo, but if you're really worried about securing student files, making sure no one unauthorized sees them, doesn't get much more secure than that. If someone picks up your binder off your desk All they have to do is flip through it to see confidential information. The next concern is one that makes me lose sleep at night sometimes too, and that's losing your data. And I will admit, a digital system is a lot more vulnerable to this sort of data loss than a binder is. A binder is physical, it's heavy, you can hold it in your hands and flip through it. It's not prone to crashing or data corruption, or even though it's a little bit vulnerable to it, dumping a cup of coffee over it isn't going to completely ruin your mark binder. The iPad, a little bit more vulnerable. It can break, it can get corrupted, it can get lost, stolen much easily. If you are like me, sometimes you put your shopping list on your iPad, maybe it gets left in the shopping cart and you have to go back to the shopping mall and hope it's still there, and miraculously it was. That's my story. Ask me, I'll tell you about it sometime. But yes, it is, losing your data is much easier on a digital system. I'll admit that. However, making a backup of your digital information is much easier on a digital system than it is for your binder. So really, there's no excuse for losing your data as long as you are being vigilant in backing it up. And the backup system is included right in the iDoceo app. You just go over to your settings menu and you scroll down to your backup settings. You have a bunch of options here. You can use the Apple iCloud. I don't, because I don't think it's reliable. But what is reliable is Dropbox and Google Drive. Use one of those two options to store your backups and to do restorations if necessary. So I'm using Google Drive right now, and you can see the options up here, either to backup now or restored archived data. And it's not an automatic system. You have to remember to do it every day. Back up your data. So I go in here and I click on Backup Now. And as you can see down at the bottom, there is a little tiny progress bar that's going across. And backups can be almost instantaneous, or they can take a few minutes. It depends on how fast the wireless network you're on, and it also depends on how many pictures and recordings and videos you have attached to your students in your iDoceo. The more files you have, the bigger the backup file is, the longer it'll take. The next thing that you might want to do is to restore a backed up file. If for some reason your iDoceo becomes corrupted, you have to uninstall it and reinstall it. If something happens to your iPad, if it breaks or it gets lost, you can actually restore your iDoceo information onto any iPad that has the iDoceo app on it. So what you do here, here's my list of restored files, and you can see they're listed by date and time. So it's very easy for me to figure out which restoration file I need to use. So let's say I've lost my iPad, I've got this brand new one, I've got iDoceo installed on it, now I want to put all my information on it as if nothing ever happened. So I just go ahead and I click on the restore file that I want to install. It highlights it for me, and as you can see down at the bottom, once again there is a status bar that shows me that it's loading my backup file. And then here we go, the point of no return. Right here it's telling me that it is ready to install my backup file and replace everything that's currently on my iDoceo program. So don't click restore unless you're really sure you want to do that. If you're not, go ahead and click cancel. Okay, and that's all for this tutorial for today about how you can make your iDoceo files secure and safe. I hope that I have helped to alleviate some of your fears about throwing out that binder and going paperless and all digital. See you next time.